Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Corey Walsh Podcast. Today is Monday, the 11th, and we're going to be talking to Ian Lenahan about The Last Dance, parts 5 through 8. We had him on 2 weeks ago before to talk about parts 1 through 4, and the parts 5 through 8 are just as good as 1 through 4. We're going to be talking about Michael Jordan as a tyrant and about the Bulls as a whole, so I hope you guys stay tuned and enjoy the whole episode. All right, so now we have Ian Lenahan on to talk about parts 5 through 8 of The Last Dance. Welcome back, Ian.
Thanks, Corey. Let's do this.
All right. So what did you think about this second part? Well, I guess like the last 4 episodes, because we split it into 2.
It was terrible. No, I'm just kidding.
How did it drop off so fast?
No, I mean, I think it's still really, really, really good. And just being able to see how they hop back and forth between the early part of the dynasty, the first part, and then back between, 1993, those first couple of years, and then back to the second three-peat, I thought was, I think it's really well woven, is a weird way to put it, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen on Twitter though people are like kind of like upset with how the documentary is kind of strung together. They think like how confusing is it for you to just realize that they're following the timeline of the 1998 season and then going back in reverse.
Those are just stupid people, Corey.
Yeah. It's like
I agree.
It's like I'm not one of them. What?
No, I didn't comment on that. What?
No, that wasn't my post. Look, I'm just going to check my Twitter real quick, though.
I'm going to delete something really quick.
All right, so episode 5 kind of started the Be Like Mike narrative. They kind of dove in about his sneaker deal with Nike, which I guess was basically the equivalent if, like, LeBron was, like, coming out of high school, was like, you know what? I'm going to choose Asics. That's going to be my brand. Everyone, when Nike was picked, was like, what? I mean, like, it was not even considered one of those. It was mostly a track-based shoe.
Yeah, this smaller company from Oregon.
Yeah, whatever would happen.
Right off the wall, and how he initially, right. If these walls could talk. No, and then imagine if he chose Adidas.
That would have been pretty cool for Adidas. They would have probably dominated soccer and basketball.
Every 50-year-old man with a pair of Adidas kicks right now is foaming at the mouth of what could have been.
I could be like Mike in my Air Foam J's.
And if I didn't have sciatica.
I felt like they also said that the Converse were the popular basketball shoe at the time, but they weren't like flashy or anything. Yeah. And what made Nike really stand out is that they like went for like flash, and every other basketball shoe was like just function.
Yeah, I feel like the Jordans were the first pair of, I mean, flash is a much better way to put it, but the really, really colorful, really eccentric shoe. And then it sounded like they were the first to really work with someone like Michael Jordan, or whoever the brand is named after, to really figure out the comfort of the shoe too and how it works.
Yeah, Larry Bird with Converse wasn't going like, you could just throw leather on and just slap my name on it.
I've got blisters everywhere.
But I'm a farmer's man and my back still hurts. So it's totally fine. And then they kind of, I guess the MVP for Nike was Jordan's mother, who, when Michael Jordan was like, I don't want to go to Nike, was just like, you're going to go. They're offering you record-setting money. There's no reason why you shouldn't go.
Thank God for a mother's influence.
Yeah. You think Michael's appreciative or what?
Thank you, Dolores.
Seeing as Dolores looks like she's 20 years younger than her actual age.
I know, good for her.
I was just like, that's Michael's mother?
Who's your dermatologist?
God, the cream you must use on your face.
Neutrogena.
Thanks. Sciatica. Wait. Another thing that was also pretty, like, because I've seen the 30 for 30 where they did the whole shoes thing. Like, that just made Nike go to a whole different level of profit when Michael Jordan signed with them, which is so weird because he got drafted 3rd, but he was regarded as like the best college player. But yet, I don't know any other player in today's game that would be drafted 3rd that would become the entire face of a shoe.
No, that's That's absolutely crazy. I mean, even players from, Kevin Durant was taken number 2, and Derrick Rose was number 1, but there was no way that that was ever going to be even fathomable for that to happen, for them to come out right out of college and get their own shoe. That's just ridiculous.
It'd be like when Lonzo.
Nike saw something, though.
Just like the Lonzo Ball experiment.
Dude, Triple B.
Lonzo Ball is basically the Michael Jordan of this generation, is what I'm saying, in terms of entrepreneurship.
The bad bastard boys. Wait.
LaMelo, LiAngelo, and Lonzo.
Lil Dicky.
The pioneers of the Baller brand. I don't even think, is Lonzo still under Baller brand? I don't think he is. I think he just wears Nikes.
I haven't watched Ball in the Family in way too long. No, I think he does. He was a different type.
Dude, best Facebook watch show ever. It's like the only one they have in Tom versus Time.
Shout out Zuckerberg.
God, he is a film genius. And the thing also about the shoes, is that it's like I just don't see it. Like, to me, it was like if like Michael Kidd Gilchrist came out of college because he was like taken third, and you just see like, I don't even know. I guess I'll use Asics again. Like Asics just goes like, hey, you know what? We're not a basketball shoe, but hell, we'll give you a full massive contract. We're ready to convert.
But Jesus, it's MKG. How could you not?
He is touted. Anthony Bennett gets a full offer from Converse. The Bennett Fours. You too could have a nasal passageway issue and drop out of the league.
America's 6th man.
You too could feel like a man who once had aspirations of being in the NBA, only foiled by poor weight.
And the excessive cold of Syracuse. Was he at UNLV?
Yeah, he was UNLV.
I'm going to hang up.
Then we'll shift it a little seriously here. That the All-Star game was the second part of this, really, where they opened it with, I think, that Kobe was his first All-Star game. I guess he was like a teenager
19.
still when he 19.
19. Yeah.
And it was kind of like to show that Michael Jordan kind of inspired the next generation. I feel like that's why they primarily used him. And obviously everyone who basically has watched basketball goes like, well, Kobe is the closest thing we have to Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess when you see the leadership part in later parts that we'll talk about, it's pretty accurate because Kobe was known as not being the most friendly teammate of all time.
And the confidence.
Yeah, and the moves apparently, because Kobe said something basically along the lines like that every move that you like from me, I basically got from Michael.
Yeah, I wouldn't have 5 championships if it wasn't for him.
Or Pau Gasol.
Shout out PG.
No, it'd be like, without Robert Sacrae's cheering on the bench, I couldn't get anything done. And that it was so cool though, because I feel like it's much easier for young players to get in today because it's like they're the face, but I feel like it was much different back then because the best players were the older players, and it's not like now where every generation that comes up is better than the last.
Yeah, there wasn't ever a sort of thing as like the youth movement. It was kind of, I feel like everyone had grown up, or not everyone, but people had grown up watching like Magic and Larry and those kind of guys come up through college and then dominate the league for the next couple of years. And then in that whole time when that was going on, there wasn't really anybody coming up who was kind of having the impact that Michael Jordan and Kobe did. Yeah,
it was pretty interesting because, like, even when you think about Michael getting the torch passed to him, he entered the league in, like, 1884.
Damn, way back when.
Damn.
Feel old yet?
How'd they get Netflix get this doc? It's 1990 or 1988, and then it took them until, 1986, and it took him until, 1991 to become, the face of the league. And it's like crazy because like Jordan and Bird and Magic were already towards like the end of their career, and it's just like the lasting power, I guess.
Yeah, just to clarify, 1984.
I'm going to jump off a bridge.
It's okay, man. It's not 1886.
God, the Constitution was lit. Yeah, so like, and then it was so funny just hearing Michael in the locker room talking about Kobe, and they're just like the little Laker boy.
Laker boy. I mean, obviously he's only 19, but he commanded some sort of respect if that's what the whole locker room was talking about at the time.
Yeah, even though they were just basically shit talking and being like, that guy won't pass, and I guarantee you in the All-Star game, if he just keeps taking these ISO ball plays, it doesn't pass the ball, then he won't touch it for the rest of the game.
And then him and Michael just went off that whole time.
It was another one of those instances that the documentary referenced where they were like, Michael would look for any source of inspiration in order to drive himself for a game.
Yeah.
And he just knew that Kobe was coming in with all this attention, and he just didn't want to have him to have any of the light. He wanted it all on him.
Yeah.
So he had to go and have his best performance ever in an All-Star game.
Against the 19-year-old. Oh, dude, it was so weird seeing Kobe Bryant. It was such a somber thing seeing him in. I don't want to. I think it's like a now famous from the certain photos of him, but in that famous orange sweatshirt that he had, and I don't know, just seeing him talk about everything. I wonder when they filmed this whole thing. That's something I don't know, but
well, if they started filming back in 2016, it like the footage could just be like anywhere between then for interviews.
Yeah.
I mean, the interview
Yeah.
part. Except David Stern was interviewed, and I thought David Stern passed away.
He did, yeah. He did. I would actually, not to jump away from episode 5 really, but I was actually very surprised when, not surprised that they gave the in memoriam for episode 5 to Kobe Bryant, but then they didn't say anything for David Stern too, you know?
Oh yeah, that's true. I feel like because it was like David Stern died, and it was like kind of expected because he was an older man, but Kobe was just so young that it was like unexpected.
And obviously, yeah, very tragic too.
But I guess in the role that he played for the NBA in general, that I guess it is weird that he didn't include him. So I'll just controverse myself, contradict.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very somber to see that, but yeah, very interesting to see that, or have Kobe admit, well, I wouldn't have all this if it wasn't for someone like Michael Jordan.
Yeah, it's just pretty interesting to watch. I mean, also it just made me really upset that the All-Star game just seemed like it was such a spectacle, like the game itself.
Yeah, that people actually cared.
Yeah, that must be really awful.
Wouldn't it be nice?
Be like Mike, give a shit in the All-Star game.
And now it's such an absolute joke. I mean, as talented as you have Luka Doncic. Well, this wasn't in the actual All-Star game itself, but like Luka Doncic pulling up from like 45 feet away or something or other. It's just like, what does this game even come to now?
But I guess the one this past year was really good. I remember I had homework, so I really couldn't watch it. But it was supposed.
Oh yeah, you didn't watch with us. It was actually pretty good. There was but it was under the new rules, and it was right after Kobe too. So I think there was a different motivation. I feel like if it was any other year, it probably would have just been the exact same.
I'm so glad I missed the once in a generation good All-Star game.
Don't worry about it, dude. There's always YouTube.
Yeah, it totally makes me feel like I'm living at the moment. Another cool thing about the Jordan in episode 5 was that it kind of just showed like how competitive he was with everything. Like he was playing quarters with the Alfred Einstein looking guy against the wall.
Oh my god. Yeah, what was it? Like his personal bodyguard or something? There was a specific
It was a
name
Bulls staffer. Like
Yeah.
he was a security guard for the Bulls.
That is one of the funniest things I think I've ever seen in my life.
That would just be like if your grandfather was like playing like craps with Michael Jordan and like.
And if your grandfather looked like a standard poodle.
That he invented electricity.
He's in the Westminster Dog Show.
And he beats Jordan in quarters, gets $5 from him, then just pulls a shrug.
That was another funny little instance from that episode too, is when some of the Bulls players were talking about how Michael Jordan and a couple of other guys would be in the way back playing for serious money, and then some other people would be playing in the front of the team playing and just blackjack or something for like dollar entry.
Mm-hmm.
And Michael Jordan would be like, "Oh, can I play a hand?" And like, "Why do you want to play with us?" He's like, "Because I want to know that I have your money in my pocket."
Yeah, that's just like, what a good team guy.
The ultimate teammate.
That has got to build up team morale. I don't want to play your little shitty game, but god damn it, I want your $2.
Camaraderie times 10.
Scottie Pippen's like, I love this guy.
I'm underpaid.
I'm under Michael, you took my $2. Now my contract will only pay me $3. And then I loved it. Yeah, I thought that was interesting because I was like thinking to myself, I'm like, you will never hear a story being like, man, LeBron was way too intense during this Corona phase with Anthony Davis. He was playing high stakes Scrabble.
While growing out his beard to look like Kyle O'Quinn.
Or like that UFC fighter, that like massive one. I forget what his name is.
Oh, I forget too, but I know what you're talking about.
He's like, what?
I was just going to say, speaking of LeBron, this whole documentary is just making it so inherently clear that Michael Jordan is probably better than LeBron and probably could score. I think Shaq said the other day that Michael Jordan could score 45 points in the modern NBA. And I don't really, or 45 per game, I really don't think that that's too far off, you know?
Yeah, but I feel like in the way that the game is now, like, I don't think he plays in the same way that James Harden does, who's like the closest that we have to scoring like 45 a game. Because like he didn't just chuck up shots, and obviously Harden is part of that Houston offense where all they do is shoot threes or layups.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like Jordan would probably be one of the high. I think he would be the most efficient scorer in the league, if that makes sense. Like he wouldn't be the highest scoring, but he would be the most efficient.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Because I would say Harden scores the most, but is he the most efficient with his little weird step back, 1 foot legged kick?
Yeah, no, Michael Jordan would definitely be the most efficient, probably one of the smartest shooters in the game. He would definitely have the highest mid-range percentage in the game.
DeMar DeRozan would weep in the corner, being like, that used to be me.
First I got traded off a championship-winning team.
And now Michael Jordan comes back and outshoots me from the mid-range.
He's almost 60.
This sucks. And then the other cool thing, going back to the LeBron thing really quick, I was just thinking, I'm like, man, Michael Jordan just seems like such a cool guy. Like, he was cold, but like he was competitive. And when I think of LeBron, I think of LeBron just as like this weird goofball who like he obviously has drive and like he totally cares about basketball, but he doesn't give off that cool vibe.
No, he just seems like a big man child, for lack of a better term.
The Taco Tuesday thing has really killed my viewing of LeBron in terms of him being cool.
I know. Yeah, it'd be interesting to put Michael Jordan not only in today's game but also today's society. Would he be as laughable as some of these athletes are in terms of social media presence or the things they do just in general in the public eye? I don't know, but I don't really think he would be.
I feel like he would just get what you got out of Kobe when he played. Like, it wasn't really that funny unless Kobe wanted to be, but he wouldn't go do like a viral thing. But I guess Kobe's end of his career also came right as the social media era kind of began for athletes. So I feel like it'd be kind of hard to tell, but I would assume he would probably stay media silent. Like when LeBron says he does during the playoffs, I feel like Michael would do the whole time.
Yeah, probably. I agree with that.
And then in episode 6, they kind of talked about the Dream Team, which was, to me so far, I honestly think was the most fascinating episode, because you always heard the folklore of this Dream Team, and I had no idea that they basically dragged Bird's carcass out of like the league, and Magic Johnson, who was retired, and they're like, hey,
you guys,
but Magic, you're gonna play. Bird, you can sit. But take this picture with Michael.
The greatest generation.
Because you've seen that picture before with Michael, Larry, and Magic,
Yeah,
and you always thought
yeah,
the three of them played together, like that they were huge like factors of the team. When really it was just Michael and Magic.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It was very cool to see that photo come to life, and the fact that there is video footage behind it. And Magic got really close to Michael, and he was like, "Well, you can't get too close to Mike, or else it's going to be a foul."
Yeah, and then
It's very cool to see these things come to life.
yeah, it's like this footage deserved to have been seen so much earlier because it's just so fascinating. I wonder why Jordan's camp had such a clamp on it, though. Like they allowed them to record, obviously, but they were like, "No, you can't really release any of it."
I don't know. Maybe they had it planned this whole time. Of we'll give the idea and the concept and not the legacy, but the fanfare around Michael Jordan. We'll give it a couple years rest, and then we'll come back bigger than ever when people really need it. And of course, everyone needs this right now with no sports going on. So I don't know. Maybe it was planned.
Michael just sees LeBron win the championship. Oh hell no!
Yeah,
we're just dropping it. It just so happens to release during the pandemic, and he's like, "Yeah, this was intentional. I knew that the coronavirus was coming."
Not this Taco Tuesday, motherfucker.
I'm tired of watching Bronny and him do TikToks.
Bryce doesn't even look like him.
Bryce is wearing glasses that make him look like Earl. And the cool thing about the Dream Team was just like the camaraderie they seemed to have. Like it kind of sounded like, I don't know if you remember a few Olympics ago when they had the players get stuck on the cruise ship for the Olympics in most recent memory because of there was like some disease where the Summer Olympics was being held. It was like the one with Boogie and Durant and LeBron. And it's
I'm drawing a blank, but I totally believe you.
it was just like you could tell it was like the elite at the time. There was like no one really skipped out on except for Isaiah Thomas, which
No. Oops.
apparently when this might come as a shock when 90% of the team apparently doesn't like you, you don't make it.
Bad boys for life.
Obviously, the Pistons never had the golden rule: treat others the way you want to be treated.
They had Jordan rules.
The thing, the thing that was so crazy about that though was that the coach of the Dream Team was the Pistons coach, Chuck Daly.
Yeah, Chuck Daly.
Imagine Chuck just be like, "Oh, this is gonna be awesome." Isaiah, yeah, I know you're like technically like the top point guard right now, but we really we're gonna pass. Okay,
But Michael Jordan took all my money in a game of blackjack and says I can't have you on the team.
But don't worry, we made a consolation prize. We're gonna take everyone's favorite college player, Christian Laettner, a very other likable guy. You're not seeing the point here, neither am I.
I'll get you a Barcelona bumper sticker.
Don't worry, it's gonna be epic. Michael's gonna cover the Adidas logo, so it doesn't even matter. You can have the jacket.
Reebok logo.
Whatever.
Potato.
Another thing about that was the Kukoc arc, where Krause was like drooling over the mouth about Tony Kukoc, and basically was like already leading him as the successor to Michael and Pippen, and they were both Pippen and Michael were like, nope.
They left him out to dry in that game.
Yeah, they were like,
first game.
Yeah, they were gonna be like, we're gonna prove to Krause that and the world that this Kukoc guy is like not on the same tier as us. Which also becomes infinitely easier when they play. What did he play for? Croatia? Yeah, He played for when you beat down on the all amazing Croatian national team.
Which, by the way, was apparently like the second or third. I mean, they officially were the second best team in that Olympics, but coming into it, they were one of the best teams in the world, and then they ended up beating them by like 30 points.
It's so shocking because, the Croatian league is always talked about in the highest regards.
I'm always putting money down on Croatian basketball.
It's actually a problem. Michael has taken $5 from me.
I need to go to rehab.
And Kukoc eventually does become a key factor in those Bulls teams, even though Michael and Pippen kind of beat Kukoc to a pulp.
Yeah, and then it was after that first game in the 92 Olympics when they played them where Scottie Pippen was like, yeah, I mean, I just don't really know if someone like that can really, he's, supposed to be so talented over in Europe. I don't really know if that can translate over to to the modern NBA game.
Scotty, salty. Scotty seems like the saltiest player on the planet in this documentary, I have to say.
Yeah, that's how they're portraying him.
Which everyone's like, man, Scotty was this great teammate, but every clip you've seen of Scotty is him being like, well, I didn't like Tony Kukoc, and I didn't like Michael being the alpha, but I'm a great guy.
Please love me.
Dennis Rodman had the coolest Vegas party ever.
They're not really painting him in not too much of a great light, but
they're painting him in a great light as a player. They're not painting him in a great light as a person.
As a person, yeah.
I know it must be really, yeah. It does make sense though, because believe it or not, when you're underpaid criminally, you aren't going to be a happy guy for the duration of your 7-year contract.
I know. Something I thought was interesting too is when they did. To be honest, it's all blending together so much, so I don't remember which episode that they touched upon it on, but it was last night's either 7 or 8. Not to jump too far ahead, but I thought it was interesting that, in the very beginning of the documentary, they're painting out Scottie Pippen to be like, okay, he can lead when Michael Jordan's not around, or maybe if he went to a different team and got the money he deserved, he could be a leader. But then when Michael Jordan did eventually retire, there was that one little clip of him during like a commercial break, and he puts up the Jordans, and on the sole of it is the jump man, and he's just
waving at him to come over. I thought that was so cool.
I know.
Yeah, Pippen, I don't really know what else to say besides that. I feel kind of upset on how I'm being portrayed versus what the public opinion is of me in general.
Yeah, and obviously it's a Michael Jordan-centric documentary, but they're doing a good job of, I guess they're doing their due diligence and showing why Michael Jordan acted a certain way, but they really haven't touched upon that with Scottie Pippen.
Yeah, that's true. It's like, from what I basically got, which I kind of expected, it's like a Michael Jordan documentary with the Bulls kind of being the subplot. They're like, oh, this is what Michael did, and this is how the Bulls reacted.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then the way that they kind of closed episode 5 was where it was like the last 20 minutes where they built up his how the media turned against him for gambling.
Yeah.
Because he, during the finals, decided to go with his dad, or Eastern Conference Finals, I think, where they're playing the Knicks. After game 2 or something, he wanted to go just relax with his dad.
And so they just went to Atlantic City.
Yeah. Yeah, what a crime! Apparently the Celtics did the same thing, though, in 2008.
Yeah, I mean, what's the difference? It's just because it's Michael Jordan.
I mean, for what it sounds like, every player back then would, hang out with the other team. Mm-hmm. Or they would just go out and drink after games. No one was thinking what we think today of body regulation and nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I don't know why it was it was just because it was Michael, and they had they said the "be like Mike" catchphrase just really is kind of a burden at the same time. It built him up, and yet it also was the reason he got put down.
Well, it makes sense too that I don't want to say it makes sense that the media was doing that, but it makes sense that maybe wider culture, as much as Michael Jordan was and still is beloved, is no one likes to see a team or an individual have so much sustained success for so long. America does not like the Patriots. America didn't like the Cowboys. America, for the most part, does not like the Yankees or the Red Sox, or a lot of people hate LeBron.
America's the story of the underdog. So it's we root for the person or the team with the least amount of chance to win.
Right.
Because no one likes seeing the favorite, I guess.
Right. Do you want to see Alabama football win or lose?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Michael was weird in the way that he was never viewed as hated. I've heard that other fans of other teams that watched the Bulls were still they rooted for Michael. Even if their team wasn't in it, they wanted him to win. You don't see that with LeBron or Brady or Nick Saban, like you said, or Duke.
Yeah.
They're always referred to as evil empires, and you just refer to the Bulls, it seems, as if they're in this different breath of being just America's team.
The world's team.
Exactly.
I think, yeah, really the world's team, especially in one of the first couple episodes where they go over to France, and that's just like um, to take. I think it was Dan Patrick who used to be one of the hosts of um, a show at ESPN. When it's Michael Jordan, all the world's a stage. The great Shakespearean line, and I think this documentary proves that to be very true.
Yeah, I would like. It's just a fanfare for Jordan, is what this
Hmm.
documentary is. It kind of just like shows the world in our generation. I feel like specifically like how beloved he was.
Yeah,
Like, who would you say today is the closest thing we have to Jordan in terms of like universal fan like appraisal?
it would have been not would have. It still is Kobe.
I would
I
say
think.
Kobe now, or I would,
Mhm.
in a weird way, I don't know. I think Steph Curry is kind of like the closest thing.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think next man up would be someone like Steph Curry, but I don't know because there's also, the whole idea of the Warriors blowing the 3-1 lead to the Cavs, and
Mm-hmm.
no one was really big into the fact that the Warriors in this entirely different style and generation of basketball, no one was, you know, over the moon about the fact that they were one game better than arguably the greatest basketball team of all time, the '96 Bulls. No one was extremely happy that they went 73-9. So I think it is Steph Curry in some sense, but also I don't know. But I think the closest would be Kobe.
Yeah,
Was Kobe.
I would probably have to agree with you on Kobe because the more I think about it, the Kevin Durant thing, really threw the wrench in
Exactly.
Steph Curry. If
Yeah,
if that
exactly.
Warriors team was the way it was before,
Mhm.
like they added Kevin Durant, I would probably say Curry was on like the path of being as well liked.
Yeah, because I think maybe something that a basketball fan in the '90s or a generation ago, what they could have been most upset about if they really did hate a team like the Bulls and their sustained success is maybe they could have been ripping mad that Michael Jordan came out of retirement to play basketball again. But it's not like they still had Michael Jordan and then added arguably the best player in the league to make them even better. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I guess like I just thought about it for a second. I think the closest comparison outside of basketball would probably be Peyton Manning. Who disliked Peyton Manning?
That's very true. Yeah, and he is in an odd way, Peyton Manning is kind of a sports cultural icon.
Mm-hmm. He didn't
Yeah.
have a brand. You didn't wear your Peytons.
Right, and it sounds like no one really ever had a problem with him or that he ever did anything to upset anyone. I mean, people will always find, if we're talking about Peyton Manning, then of course you have to talk about Tom Brady. People will always find a little something that has to do with Tom Brady. People who hate him the most, it seems like, will always bring up um, his first child with Bridget Moynihan. That always um, drives a little hatred home. But yeah, Peyton Manning, no one ever has anything bad to say.
And that Tom Brady's basically associated with a franchise that is known for cheating.
Okay, yes, there's that.
you
You
know,
you had to bring it up.
I didn't want to, but so then they kind of close out that the wear and tear of the first three-peat for Michael, with it culminating between the gambling and just like he felt like apparently after during the Olympics he felt like that 1993 season was going to be his last.
Yeah, that's so. To me, that's just unfathomable. And you hear about, but it also makes sense because of the wear and tear that some of these athletes. I mean, obviously, someone like Rob Gronkowski's back, but Rob Gronkowski was an early retiree.
Andrew Luck.
Stick with football. Andrew Luck, Calvin Johnson, Luke Kuechly, all these really really talented people. Just saying, you know what, this is taking so much of a toll on me, and it's not like I have much more to prove, so I'm gonna go up. But Michael Jordan was different.
Yeah, he
It
was like
seems like
the
obviously he was
best.
before time, he was different. Yeah.
Like these players that were like you just mentioned were like one of the best at their position.
Hmm.
It would just be like to me that like this is like the most cliche comparison ever, but it'd be like if LeBron just left after like losing to Dallas in the first like in that finals with the Miami Heat or something. Like
Yeah.
he was just like at the peak of his powers and then he just decided I'm going to go. Except we can't compare it because Michael Jordan won 2 finals leading up to it and
Yeah.
LeBron didn't even win one yet.
Yeah. It's I think a good word for it would be Michael Jordan was just so transcendent that it was really powerful to see, the imagery and the short little videos of people standing on the streets of Chicago crying. I
Get a
don't
grip.
really know. Yeah, I don't. So dramatic, theater major.
Nice try.
Yeah, I don't really know if there's anyone quite like that whose retirement would have that sort of impact on wider culture. LeBron, I think, yes, to an extent. Um, um, Kobe, probably, if he had left in the same sort of fashion, probably the same sort of thing. But I guess no one like Michael.
I feel like it was because like they felt when Michael died, the NBA kind of died in a way.
Yeah.
Retired. When Michael retired, the NBA died.
Holy shit, Corey.
God, I am sorry. No, the reason I say that is because I feel like the reaction was kind of similar to I feel like when Kobe died, because it just like took the air out of the room knowing that Michael left the sport.
And I bet there was this feeling of, how do we start all over? How do we find the next big person? Because even though they did have all that amazing talent back then, especially on that '92 Dream Team, in comparison to Michael, it was all, supporting actors.
Yeah, and then like the way they said that like the sports world kind of froze when Michael left. Like not even the basketball world, like the sports world froze. I feel like that
Mhm.
really has only been comparable in sports to like when an athlete dies suddenly.
Yeah, and then think about how quickly the turnaround was when, he's, I guess, mulling the decision for a little bit, and then Jerry Reinsdorf, who also owned the Chicago White Sox. Maybe he still does, I don't know. But they were talking about how he was the owner of the White Sox, and he's at the ballpark at the same time Michael Jordan is, up in the suite or some box or something. And then word gets to Reinsdorf that he wants to retire. And then Michael Jordan ends up leaving by the seventh inning because the media is trying to come into the box and barge in and try to ask him all these questions like, is it true? Is it going to happen? And then the next day is the
The conference.
announcement, the conference, and there's people from all over the world. And the documentary said, everyone from local to, to cable and network news is there. And there were so many cameras and so many different reporters. It must have just been madness.
And then Michael decided to pursue his lifelong passion of being a baseball player.
This was so great to watch.
Terry Francona, star of the show.
Oh,
Oh, we
that
have to preface it though by saying the reason he chose to was because his father was murdered.
it's a big part, and I genuinely didn't know the story behind um, his father's passing, and I didn't realize that he went missing for several weeks, and they one of the only times they've brought in one of Michael Jordan's brothers is to talk about their father, and say, was it odd that he was out of contact with you for, even like a day or, however long, maybe just like a couple days. And he was like, yeah, it was, something that had never really happened before. I had no idea of the significance and it was circumstantially what it was.
Yeah, I really didn't either. And it was like basically they described it as being like it could have been anyone.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like he was targeted because he was Michael Jordan's father. It was like it just literally was two
Yeah.
18-year-olds being like jackasses.
Yeah, trying to rob him, and what was it? He was embarking on a long trip, and then I think around nighttime pulled off the road to just fall asleep for a little bit, and then the two 18-year-olds try to rob him, and then
Shot him in
shoot him in
the
the
chest and
chest.
then threw him into the river. Is that where they?
Something along those lines. And I genuinely didn't know any of that.
Yeah, I would probably not want to play a sport for a little bit because of that too. But it's like
Yeah.
they said that like Michael Jordan had so much weight to bear, like on the family.
hmm
Like he like was kind of like the pillar.
hmm Yeah, and then what was it? They said that the last Michael Jordan said that the last conversation he ever had with his dad over the phone was um, he had been mulling retirement up to that point and considering playing baseball, and his dad had wanted him to play baseball when he was younger, and of course his dad was all gung ho and saying, "You should do it, you should do it," and then obviously that just set him right over, and that's why he left.
What I was thinking when they were talking about that was they made like his dad. He said his dad was like his best friend, But
Hmm.
in the early part of the documentary, like the first 2 episodes, you did not get that vibe
Yeah,
whatsoever that they were close
not at
friends.
all.
So it was so confusing the way they portrayed that to me.
Yeah, and I don't know if they did that on purpose or something, if it was something that you had to kind of pick out as he started winning championships. Maybe it was supposed to be maybe a crescendo of emotional imagery or something, but I hadn't really noticed that his dad was there with him the whole time in some of those really iconic photos after the championships. And because you're right, in those first couple episodes, he was saying, I felt like I was fighting for my father's attention. I felt like he was always giving it to my older brother, who was at the time more gifted athletically. So I agree with you. I thought it was kind of hard to pick out, but I did like the way they portrayed it and kind of summed it all up last night.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good way to like kind of summarize the feel. Like we kind of evolved with Michael and his relationship with his dad.
Hmm.
So then he tries to play baseball, which is probably one of the more historic switches of all time.
Yeah, I mean, people thought it was big when Tim Tebow suddenly hung up the cleats and then
God
got the
bless.
spikes out. I mean, yeah, people thought that was big. I thought that was big at least, and obviously I have no idea how big the Michael Jordan thing was, but looks looked like a spectacle.
They kind of like, so I've watched the 30 for 30 where they talked about like it's called like Jordan Rides the Bus, and
Hmm.
it's about like his road in Double A. They did not make it seem like he was that good of a baseball player. But when you watch this
Yeah,
documentary, they were like, if you get
he
like
could have
Terry,
found a way to the major leagues.
yeah, they're like with 1,500 at bats at least with his work ethic, he could have made the major leagues. And I was like, what? I've heard he
Yeah,
is like was not good at all.
yeah,
Like
and
he was
Jerry
becoming
Reinsdorf.
better.
Yeah, and Jerry Reinsdorf said he was like, I was so surprised that he hit 202, which I guess that is two-sided. Yes, very surprised in the sense that he hadn't played baseball since he was 17 years old, but also then saying that he probably could have made it to the major league level. Well, he was batting 202. That's hot garbage. But then again, it's Michael Jordan, so he probably could have done whatever he wanted.
Yeah, and then what did they say? They said that like the only reason they brought him to Double A was because they needed the media room, not because he was that good. And they like show his
Yeah,
tryout footage, and he's like bobbling ground balls, and I'm like, this is such a publicity stunt over
it
everything
was.
else.
Yeah, it was. It looked like when I played baseball in high school, it looked like winter training or something. You're in at a gymnasium taking these grounders that are just popping out and taking the dumbest hops, and he's trying to stick with it. It looked like high school, and then culminates in him signing this contract, which of course imagine if they had rejected Michael Jordan. There's no way they would have.
Yeah, exactly. This was like, and then the funniest part to me, the part that almost made me like laugh out loud, was when they were like, "Yeah, after assessing Michael in this tryout, we realized he is definitely good enough for the minor leagues." And then they proceed to follow him bobbling the ground balls, and I'm just like, "Are you
Exactly.
kidding me? Based on what?"
Can you imagine that though? I mean, minor league baseball. I mean, like all um, all professional developmental leagues, like the G League. I can imagine, and the leagues like that, the AHL and hockey, but minor league baseball, especially because I don't know if you've been to a game or not, but they have just like these gags and these jokes and these you know um, weird advertising games that they do in the middle of the innings, and minor leagues is a joke. Is what I'm trying to say.
Mhm.
And then to bring Michael Jordan in, Michael Jordan, and the only thing that could probably be comparable to it in the years since, media attention wise, in terms of the minor leagues, is Bryce Harper coming up. I went to a game. The Portland Sea Dogs are the Double A affiliate of the Boston Red Sox, and I went to a couple Portland Sea Dogs games, um, during young adolescence in the summer, and one of them was against the Harrisburg Senators, the Washington Nationals Double A affiliate, and that meant seeing Bryce Harper, and the way that people flocked to him was unimaginable. And we actually ended up taking. I didn't get his autograph, unfortunately, and it's not like it haunts me to this day or anything. But we ended up taking a secret route with people who go to those games all the time, and they were nice enough to bring us to this route that brought them out to the bus, the visiting team's bus, and there were hundreds of people there, waiting to get any sort of autograph from him. And I can just imagine that Michael Jordan was probably, you know, that to the nth degree.
Can you imagine like some little kid brings over like a Michael Jordan rookie basketball card, and Michael's like, "Get that out of here!" He like
Hell no.
chucks it out the window. Get that shit out of here. He just like flicks the kid's card across the room. Now, if you want to play me in a game of quarters, now I'm interested.
Your airness is listening.
I am ready. I
don't really know if there's been anything like that. I guess maybe Bryce Harper. That was a really long-winded story. It sounded like I really needed to get that off my chest because I'm so upset about Bryce Harper.
And then imagine just being like a kid, like those minor leaguers are like what, around our age, like 20, 21, 22?
Yeah, I think maybe a little bit older for probably the more traditional player, maybe like 23, but like the highly touted prospects are probably our age, 19, 20, 21.
And just being like, oh yeah, like you're talking to like your parents, like how is training camp going? Oh, good. You know, Michael, he kind of sucks, but it's cool to have him. Michael who? Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan, he's 31. I don't know if you've heard of him.
He keeps taking my
31
quarters.
in Double A, and he can't do a crow up. He bobbles grounders. I don't know.
He's starting over me for some God knows why reason. He keeps taking all my godforsaken quarters.
He's taking my food stamps.
We're betting on who gets to take the queen bed at the hotel.
We played blackjack for my Big Mac last night. He won, of course.
That guy has a problem, Mom. I'm telling you. I don't see a Gamblers Anonymous token.
His airness is an ass.
Not to mention he sucks. But Terry Francona thinks he's good.
I did not know that Terry Francona was his manager. Oh,
that's so cool, though. That's like stars just colliding.
Yeah, without even realizing
what Terry Francona would become. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That was pretty cool. I was just thinking it'd be so weird to be like, you're an up-and-comer in today's game, and you just like look over to your left, and you're like, wait a minute, why is Adrian Peterson on my softball team?
Yeah, exactly.
And he's like, I've always had a passion for underhand pitches.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what that was like. And I wish a perspective that they had kind of shed a light on last night was whether or not the people in the minor leagues, maybe some of his old teammates or Terry Francona or even Jerry Reinsdorf, had some sort of an inkling on whether or not he was going to come back. They didn't really get much opinion on that. They just showed Michael Jordan like watching a Bulls game in the locker room, and kind of you could sense like, oh, he misses it, but is he going to do it? Is he mulling it? Blah blah blah. And I wish that they had talked to some of his old teammates or some coaches or something just to try to see like how long did they feel that he was going to stick around for? Was he going to try to make it to the major leagues, or was this just like a little thing to try to prove himself? Like, no, I did this, so now I'll go back.
Yeah, that kind of felt like a slap in the face to baseball. I feel like in a way, because it was like, yeah, I've always wanted to play baseball. I'm going to dip my toes in. Okay, that was fun. That was a good year and a half. I'll see ya.
Yeah, it makes me obviously. The way that we're seeing him right now is that he constantly wanted a challenge and would never back away from a challenge. But it's not that he didn't do well, because he didn't play baseball for 14 years, then went into Double-A professional baseball and still did relatively well. But then again, he didn't entirely conquer it. So I don't really know. Maybe it was just like a matter of the heart. Like, no, I wanted to do this and I did this, but I wouldn't really say that, he totally mastered everything going on. He would do a lot better than I would be doing jumping into Double-A baseball after no professional athletic success at all. But you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I heard a reason that why he left baseball to go back to basketball was he felt that the talent pool in the league in the latter half of the 90s was much less than when it was in the lower, like in the early 90s. Mm-hmm. So he felt like it was easier to conquer the NBA again. So he was like, yeah, I'll do that. That's definitely achievable.
Oh, that's interesting.
And that definitely would make sense, because the teams of the early 90s were definitely not the same as the teams of the latter half. There was a talent drought, because like I said, like the league seemed definitely like more towards the older players around when Michael entered, and you didn't really see many new names that would enter the league. Like you look at the teams that he played in those latter half of the playoffs, you got the Seattle Sonics, who basically had Gary Payton and Sean Kemp.
Yep.
The best team he played was like the Jazz with Stockton and Malone. But I feel like if you put that Stockton and Malone team back in like 1993, it would have not been as dominant of a time. I mean, Reggie Miller was one of the top players of like the league at that time, and I don't think of Reggie Miller as like one of the greatest players of all time.
No, I don't.
And those Knicks teams too, they had an old Patrick Ewing as their like leader.
Yeah, it wasn't like playing Isaiah Thomas and the Pistons, and it wasn't like playing the earlier Knicks teams or, the Celtics at the end of their run. I mean, I think the three teams that really kind of stepped up, at least the way they're portraying it in the documentary, was the Magic with Horace Grant and a young Shaquille O'Neal, and then
And Penny
the
Hardaway.
Supersonics and the Knicks, but an older Knicks team. So, yeah, he definitely – that makes sense what you're saying in terms of him wanting to come back because it would have been easier for him to conquer.
And then, so I guess he comes back into the league.
Mm-hmm.
And with the Bulls during that time, they had a really good first year. But that, like we said, Pippen had issues with because I guess Phil Jackson on the last play of one of the games in the first
Against
round.
The Knicks.
Yeah, against the Knicks was like, we need someone to close this one out. And Kukoc throughout the year has been very clutch in these plays I've drawn up for him, so I'm just going to draw another one up for him. And Pippen was basically like, where the hell is my shot? Even though it's been very well documented in this documentary that Pippen was not known for his shooting.
Exactly. Someone, I don't remember who it was, but someone immediately after they were talking about that, they were like, well, Scotty was the facilitator. He was never the shot taker.
Yeah. And then you were just like, Pippen was just like, if I could take it back, I wouldn't.
Can you imagine that? Oh, my God.
He threw like a temper tantrum. It's like, I'm not going in. You're not going to draw the play for me. I'm not going to pass the damn ball to Kukoc.
I know. I really wonder, I don't know which teammate it was, but I really wonder what that one teammate who was sitting next to him was saying something.
You're such a bitch.
Yelling something into his ear. Yeah, probably, as he was staring ahead. But I thought that was very interesting footage because the way they're talking about it makes it seem like, of course, he had, this really dramatic little moment, but it sounded like he just took himself out of the equation and just said, you know what? No, I don't want a part of this at all. And the way he was going about it, maybe he kind of felt like, well, this is better. Apparently, this is better than me, and I don't want to get in the way of that. But everyone else is kind of looking at it like, well, you're supposed to be our leader now that Michael's gone, and you just totally abandoned all efforts at this point.
Yeah, and like it's from what they described those Bulls teams have without Michael, it was definitely team oriented, and like Scotty was like, I feel like it was like a Spurs-esque mentality on those Bulls teams where they like because you saw that one clip where they passed it completely around the perimeter, did a few cuts, and just kept on slashing and dishing out, which ended up just going into like a dunk, and it was like a 16-second sequence, and Pippen at least touched the ball like 4 times.
Yeah, it kind of gave me the idea of like, well, you're only as good as, how much better you can make the guys around you,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was just very surprised. And then I was more surprised how Pippen was just like, he basically was like, yeah, if I could like take it back, I wouldn't. But it was obviously a bad look for me, and it haunted me for my career. Why wouldn't you take it back?
Yeah, they're making Scottie Pippen look, I mean, he said that obviously very willingly, but he's coming off as such an oddball.
Yeah, it was like one of my greatest mistakes ever, but at the same time, I would never take it back. It was awesome.
Let's run that back.
I loved making my teammate cry in the locker room.
Like Bill Cartwright started sobbing.
Why would you do this to me, man?
I guess I'd do it again, though.
Bill Cartwright cried on my favorite shoes, which made me feel like my decision was all the more right.
And another perspective I wish they got to was Scottie Pippen during the time that Michael was gone. What was it being the one to kind of step up in that role, even though his role as the quote-unquote facilitator was, to make everyone around him better and to play, to run the game with more ease. What was it like to not have someone like Michael Jordan there? Of course, they got the perspective of, well, we knew we couldn't be as good, but also what did it mean to lead a team? And that would have fallen with Scottie Pippen. So I wish they had talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, me too. And then they basically took the transition of Michael being in the Space Jam training to come back after he was very disappointed in his initial return where they lost to the Magic wearing the 45.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he started as 45 and then went back to 23, and it just wasn't the same. And he realized, oh wait, and didn't realize it then, but he knew obviously this baseball body that I have is not going to be sustainable in the NBA game.
Why do you feel like that is? I was like wondering, what do you think the difference is between like training for baseball versus training for basketball?
Yeah, well, Michael Jordan was saying in one of the episodes last night that in basketball you need shoulders, you need chest, you need you need the top half, and then in baseball, if no matter what kind of hitter you're going to be, you need your lower half, you need the lower extremities, you need your hips more than anything too. You need to know how to drive a ball with your lower half because obviously it's not human nature to be able to hit a baseball solely with your arms 400 plus feet.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's so different, obviously. And then obviously the running aspect too is totally different between baseball and basketball, because in baseball it's short bursts, and in basketball it's all about how can I keep this going for 48 minutes. So the lower half and the top half is really what made it so different. Even though you need both for strength, the way you go about that strength is going to look extremely different.
Yeah, and basically it only took him one extra season of Space Jam.
I couldn't believe that.
I thought that was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, because we were talking about before we started this episode, but that footage of the 92 Dream Team in the closed practice, besides maybe a couple cameras, maybe a couple reporters, that looked like some of the best basketball that was ever played.
I'm surprised they didn't put like that footage on like the bonus disc for Space Jam.
Right, but then Reggie Miller was the one in one of the episodes last night talking about going over to Warner Brothers and how it became a thing for some of the best players in the end. It was like Jawan Howard, Dennis Rodman, Reggie Miller, Patrick Ewing, Rodman, a bunch of those guys went and they're like, well, if you're anybody, then you're going to go to the Warner Brothers studios to go practice with Michael Jordan after he's already been filming for, like 10 to 12 hours a day.
And then he needs to lift after.
Yeah, and then he would play 3 hours of pickup.
That would seem so fun.
Yeah, and then Reggie Miller was like, those were the best basketball games I've ever played in.
I was watching that, and I was thinking that like that could be a good format for what they do for the quarantine playoffs that they're talking about.
Yeah, that'd be and they're talking about a big brand like, can we go to Disney and can we do it like that?
Why couldn't they just build like those courts? Didn't look like they took that long to build.
No, if they specifically did it for Space Jam, a freaking movie about like Bugs Bunny and the Toon Squad, then they can do it to get the NBA going again. I don't really understand. Obviously, it's a totally different situation, but you can't tell me that they don't have the money in their back pocket to facilitate something similar.
I mean, that'd be pretty cool. Like
it'd be amazing.
It'd be like the playoff. I feel like if they did that once, they would like everyone would love it and they would want to keep doing it. Like having that like type of environment where they go to somewhere different, so there's really like no home court advantage. But obviously, like the teams with
everyone plays in Guantanamo,
Bermuda. LeBron, Durant, Bermuda, be there.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
that was just such a pressing thought.
It's just so funny because, like, obviously no one would go for it because the arenas would lose so much money. But they'd be like, yeah, go ahead. Take all of those millions of dollars to Guantanamo. I hear the beaches are lovely.
And the fellowship is even better.
I hope that when you go to Disney for the next tournament, you tell me what the leaks are for Frozen 3. That's Disney, right?
I think so. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Good. It would be very interesting to see if they could do something similar.
And then they culminated with it being like they they played B.J. Armstrong and the Hornets, and
Yeah.
B.J. Armstrong, a former Bull, was basically in game one just like, I'm the alpha here, all like 6'1" of him.
Was that supposed to be the '98 playoffs?
Yes.
Yeah, because they had talked about the '96 run a little bit in that team and how they fared with everything.
Wait, I thought it was the 97 team, 96 team. I mean,
Dude, it's all blurring together. I don't even remember.
I think it was the 96 because it
Mhm.
showed him winning the championship at the end.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it was basically they should, and he was like, Michael had to create these narratives in his head for why he wanted to beat people. And
Oh my God, yeah, and the guy from the Washington Bullets, how he never even said like, "Hey, Mike, good game," but he just made it up in his head so that he could go out and score 47 points against him or something.
that's not the traits of a psychopath.
I totally do that at the UNH rec all the time.
when McClung dunks on me on a fast break, I
Get
just
into overdrive.
you should see the air I take.
Flip my shit
I fly
in my Skechers shape ups.
in my A6 deal that I made. I'm wearing my MKGs.
It always comes back to MKG.
Dude, we're giving Michael Kidd-Gilchrist more airtime than he's had in the past 7 years.
Thank God.
Well deserved. Good for you, Michael.
Encore. All the world's a stage when
How-
you're Michael Kidd-Gilchrist.
Obviously, Michael Jordan knew what he had because he drafted Michael Kidd-Gilchrist.
What a lucky man.
Dude, it's the name Michael. It just exudes greatness. So below this podcast, there will be a link to the MKGs. All proceeds go to Corona and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist.
Find them in any failing shoe store in America.
Go to Famous Footwear Back Rack. You'll see it.
What were we talking about?
We're talking about BJ, the Washington Bullets.
Yeah, yeah. And
Then Michael was like, I'm going to drop 47 on you. I'm going to score what you score in the first half.
yeah, and then he scored 47, and then that was just one example. And then B.J. Armstrong, I think, just like absolutely whooped in game 2 of one of those series in the '96 run, and then it was just over after that.
Then they kind of finalized it with them talking about the Sonics, where the new meme of Michael Jordan, which I got to say, if Michael was hoping not to get any more memes about him, he's really failing.
Yeah, that was like obviously it's very badass to see someone like Michael Jordan just start laughing hysterically when someone talks about how he played him really well defensively, or how he got into his head. But it's also, maybe this is just me, but also kind of creepy to see how someone can be that dominant and have it in their brain is, oh no, you will never have the upper hand on me. The only reason that you thought you had the upper hand on me
It's
was
because I
for
wanted
other
you
personal
to.
reasons. Yeah, exactly.
That was like so weird. It was like in the twist of like an M. Night Shyamalan movie. Like Gary Payton's just like, oh yeah, I was real close. If I played this the way I played him in the last 2 games of the series versus the first 2, it could have been, I'm not saying it would have been completely different, but it definitely would have been different. And Michael was just like, oh, nope.
Not at all. Yeah, it almost made you wonder if was Michael Jordan maybe saving some sort of a better clinching performance closer to Father's Day in that first final since his father had passed away in '93, or was it subconsciously that sort of thing, not present on his mind, but something that he felt deep down, or was it actually Gary Payton? It's Michael Jordan, so he had so much control over the situation, way more than anyone thinks that they will ever have.
Yeah, I just thought it was just so crazy that Michael that was like you said, it was like psychopathic the way that he just like laughed at it, and like I just got I like smiled from it because I'm like, oh my god, this guy's just nuts.
Yeah, and
but like
knew it was
not
gonna
a
try to do
negative
it.
way of nuts. It's just like he's that highly competitive that he puts himself on the same stratosphere that everyone else puts him on. Like you see some athletes are like humble about how good they are, and like Michael's just like, nope, yeah, I'm the best. Like not even close.
Yeah, and I think what makes it psychopathic or odd or creepy for common men like you and I. It's just the fact that to think that someone can have this immense, crazy amount of talent, to have that much control over absolutely everything, just flip a switch whenever you want, and know that you're going to get the result that you want. I think that's what probably made it just so interesting to observe for someone like you and I, and probably everyone else watching it too, is how can someone be that talented to know that they're going to be better than someone in an infinite amount of ways whenever they want.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Then it shows him winning the finals at the end, and he's
Yeah.
like sobbing because Michael is not prone to crying. He hasn't cried like
Meme.
6 times in this series.
Michael's meme culture.
Oh, the last thing I do want to talk about before we go is the way the 7th episode ended. I know this is out of order, but it talked about Michael as a teammate.
Yeah,
And
speaking of him crying, yeah.
and the way he ended that episode was like kind of cinematic in a way. Props to Michael for acting.
I thought so too, and my big takeaway from, I will say, my big takeaway from episodes 5 through 8 is the development of, Michael into superstardom and becoming this cultural, you know, this Megatronic-esque sort of icon for the world, and then how he's holed up in his room and how he just kind of you could tell he's kind of craving for just some sort of moment to himself or moment with maybe it's just his teammates or his loved ones without having to go out and like face the media and face fans everywhere he goes. And then for me, episodes 5 through 8 and episode 7 really touched upon that. Is he's human, as crazy as his talent is, and how I was just saying how he can flip a switch at any instant. He's human more than anything else.
Yeah, I thought what was really powerful about the way episode 7 ended when he talked about his teammates is that he said he basically had to sacrifice being liked for his
Mm-hmm.
passion of winning, and even though he felt like he pushed his teammates, he hopes that they understood why it happened. It wasn't that he was trying to be this unlikable guy.
Mm-hmm.
But he obviously had this drive that he wanted to win.
Yeah, wanted to bring out the best result in everyone.
It's like I thought about this, and it's like LeBron when because the LeBron MJ comparisons are never happening.
Never gonna end.
When you think about LeBron as a teammate, he kind of just picks and chooses, like we said last episode where we were together, that he kind of picks and chooses who he wants to play with. But
Mm-hmm.
Michael seemed to have adopted everybody that was already with him. He didn't really seem to kick anyone out and would take him under their wing. And we don't see that with LeBron, I feel like.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that truly, I feel like, is very interesting and makes you have way more respect for the way Michael was as a leader. Because, they say LeBron's like this soft, good buddy leader, but also when it push comes to shove, he'll put you in the right direction. But let's not also forget he's the guy who subtweets you on Twitter.
Exactly. And it seems like LeBron, like you were just saying and hinting at, is LeBron knows when to flip his own switch for the better in terms of team morale and camaraderie and different things like that. It seemed like Michael Jordan was saying he had to sacrifice a lot, most of all his likability in order to get the desired result. And it seemed like, more importantly, not just the result that he wanted for himself, but steering others in the direction to see what they could achieve. And
Yeah.
I think a good example of that was when he came back after retirement. There were a couple people on the team. Steve Kerr is the most notable one out of that group who hadn't played with Michael in the first three-peat. And then there was the instance of Michael Jordan and Steve Kerr getting into a fight. Michael Jordan punches him in practice, and then Phil Jackson throws him out. But then MJ was saying last night in the documentary, okay, so that wasn't my best moment, and I got Steve Kerr's number, and I called him and I apologized, and then we worked it out because we kind of realized that I gained respect for him, but also he was starting to understand why I act the way I do, and even though it is this big sacrifice, it's ultimately for the best.
Yeah, and then One of my favorite things with the teammate interactions was the Scott Burrell, UConn legend, for those who don't know. Like, he took him under his wing, and he was just like, he was just shit-talking him, like, throughout all the practices, calling him, like, a hoe, a bitch. And he, like, shoot the layup, dumbass.
Scott Burrell.
Scotty. I loved those. I think those are like the most genuine instances you'll ever see of like an athlete, because like we all have been in practices where like you're like talking to your like friend on the team and you're just like, man, why, like for like baseball you're like, how did you not crush that ball? Or like in lacrosse where you're just like, why didn't you just fucking shoot it?
Yeah.
And it's just like it shows more camaraderie than I think it was. Like, it kind of tried to paint the interactions in a negative light and make it seem like it was like tense. But I pulled out that it was like those like buddy interactions, like little, like big brother, little brother kind of.
I also think too that with MJ knowing how talented he was and the things he could do, I think it kind of goes to show that well, I'm not suggesting that their team chemistry wasn't, especially in the '96 team, wasn't as good as any other basketball team or group of 5 basketball players ever playing together at once, in world history was. But I think it just goes to show that he wasn't trying to lead and poke at people and push people's buttons individually in a different way. He was leading by one way the entire time because he knew that his talent would ultimately take it over the end. It was just a matter of whether or not other guys were going to step up and try just as hard.
Oh yeah, I 100% agree with you. And
thank God.
Thank God, because I thought that was going to be a disaster.
That sentence started somewhere, and I don't know where it ended up.
But God damn it, it was magical.
So poetic.
And so I guess with that, it leaves us to the last 2 episodes. We'll talk about the last 2, but like we'll also talk about the series as a whole and like the main things we kind of pulled out of it.
Yeah, we'll see if they tie any loose ends together. Maybe they get some more perspective. I know I was kind of bitching and moaning about that but some points during this episode. So we'll see if maybe they have some other talking heads going on.
Will Michael Jordan win the three-peat? I do not know.
Don't Google it, Corey.
I'm trying not to. I'm so tempted.
I know, it's killing me.
But weird enough, they're playing the 1998 finals on ESPN.
Oh, shit. Don't watch.
ESPN's like, wait, that was a typo. Quickly throw in the LeBron Pistons series.
Get Windhurst on the tape.
Brian's here from Orlando talking all things Disney. What's up, Brian? Oh, hey, guys. Well, LeBron breathed. Okay, thank you.
Dude, whoever did him in Game of Zones was so good.
Oh, you want to talk about Game of Zones real quick?
I'm on like 5%, so we got to make it snappy.
Okay, well, it's taken a completely different turn than I was expecting.
Yeah, MJ related.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. How they're making MJ like the Night King of the realm.
Yeah.
But that was weird because I thought they made Kyle Lowry a White Walker, and then they didn't.
I know. The whole thing with the Raptors is so odd, but yeah, I like how Game of Zones is kind of pushing their content. Who knows? Maybe it was in correspondence with the documentary. I don't really know, but I like how it's all kind of happening at the same time culturally. This whole rehashing of whether or not Michael Jordan is the best, and could he play, and not could he, but how well would he play in today's game?
Yeah, I thought that was cool. And then like how they brought Seattle as like the home court. I thought that was pretty cool too.
Yeah, I think I think it's very creative what they're doing right now.
It's just fanfare on a platter.
Yeah, exactly. Good for them.
Yeah, those guys. It's a good thing it's ending. Wait.
Shit.
All right. Well, Ian, this has been good. I will.
Oh yeah.
I'll see you in 2 weeks for the last two. No, next week actually.
Yeah, next week. Yeah, we'll probably same time, same place.
You know it.
Excellent. Thanks, Corey.
All right, so thanks again to Ian Lenahan for coming on to talk about The Last Dance parts 5 through 8. The Last Dance has been really good so far, and I know I sound like everyone else, but I don't know if it's like the no sports going on right now or just like the Bulls being one of the most historic teams we've seen in the past 50 years, but it's truly entertaining. All right, so thank you all for listening, and stay tuned for this Friday where we're going to talk to Kyle Erickson about the NFL schedule.